A tiny soybean, a huge impact. At the center of U.S.-China trade chessboard, this humble crop has become a factor in ongoing tensions. Earlier this year, China suspended imports of American soybeans amid trade frictions. For years, the U.S. soybean industry has relied heavily on Chinese markets, making this suspension particularly impactful. How did a single crop gain such economic and political weight? What effect has China's suspension had on U.S. agricultural chain and farmers' livelihoods? And following the recent APEC informal leaders meeting, how might positive signals from both leaders affect the soybean trade between the two countries going forward? Earlier, I sat down with Jim Sutter, CEO of the U.S. Soybean Export Council, at the Import Expo in Shanghai. Jim Sutter, CEO of U.S. Soybean Export Council, welcome to The Point.
Thank you, Xin. I'm happy to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Good to have you here. Let's talk about this. Since May this year, where everybody is talking, basically China stopped buying U.S. soybean. How has this affected the American farmers?
I think it's been a real hard time for American farmers. You know, as I said, China's been a market they've been working in for a long time. They've been investing their own dollars. They have a checkoff program, so they actually invest their own dollars to support our export council's work here. And we've had a great market and a great relationship with customers here in China. So when U.S. soy gets caught up in this big geopolitical situation going on between China and the United States, I think our farmers rightly get really frustrated about that and really disappointed, because China's been such an important market for us. They've kind of grown their industry in the U.S. to be able to supply China as China grows, and then the rug is pulled out. I think, you know, one thing you will hear from all of our farmers is they want trade, not aid. I hear so many farmers saying that. Now, they say, my God, we might need some help because we had no idea that this was going to come. And you think about it, when a farmer planted their crop last spring, they didn't know there was going to be a trade war with China. They assumed they'd be able to have access to that market. So perhaps there will be some support given because of that problem that was really out of their control. But what they really want is open markets. So
will you be able to explain to the farmers what exactly is happening, how they got into, you know, the crosshairs?
You know, so we try to explain that this is a short-term situation. This is a situation that is, you know, political because of the high-level issues, and agriculture products, soybeans in particular, are maybe an easy target. But we also believe that this has been a very long-term relationship. And as you say, China wants to import. They don't really want to target the U.S. soy farmer. I think the U.S. soy farmer is seen to be a friend. It's a reaction because China doesn't know what else to do. And I can sort of understand that situation. But yes, it's a frustration to our farmers. But what we try to say is that this is not going to be the long-term situation. This is going to be a short-term deal, and we will work through it. I'm confident that the leaders of the countries will be able to work through it.
The farmers very understandably talk about, please help us secure the Chinese market, that is free trade. You actually open market you were talking about. Yep. But it's basically the same idea that China is also talking about, you know, more trade, freer trade. And it is, unfortunately, from our perspective, it is the U.S. administration that seems to do not want free trade, or they only want free trade for them, but not free trade for the others. That is creating the disagreement between the two. So do the farmers really understand that, you know, it's not going to be a one-way street?
Yeah, Xin, I think you bring up an excellent point. It is frustrating because for years in the United States we've talked about the need for free trade, the need for open markets. And I think if you look at the track record of the U.S. over the years, we've done a lot to open up markets. I think as we went through the last election cycle in the U.S., one of the things that the Trump administration campaigned on was trying to bring our balance of trade situation into a better balance, because we had too much of a deficit. We need to more balance what we're importing and exporting. So I think that's why people are saying, I think people say, I don't know if tariffs are the best way to do this, but they're one way to do it. And that's what our administration is trying to do. And I think we see signs that it's helping around the world. And hopefully with China, we can have an understanding that where we will be able to sell more goods to China, we'll continue buying things from China, we'll get this balance of trade back in line, and then we will be back to a free trade situation. But I think something needs to be done in the short run to try and get this balance of trade fixed.
And you believe that tariff is still the probably not perfect solution. You want to give it a try. But China is reacting very strongly.
China has reacted very strongly.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, for these countries that are reacting very strongly, and I understand everybody wants free trade. We want free and open trade. But we really need to try and do something to get this balance of trade more in balance. So I think, it's all about, we're at the CIIE. This showcases here to demonstrate China's large buying power and China's large potential to be an importer. So if we can take the restrictions off, I think that's what's frustrating is, China really needs to be buying more to get this balance of trade.
Well, this comes from a kind of perception that China wanted to create this huge trade deficit. Again, I don't want to repeat a cliche, but my understanding that it's not. They also want, and that's why they hold this import-export. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that, And another thing, with the deficit. Another thing with the deficit, everybody says deficit is not good, but again, it's a complicated issue.
It's a very complicated issue, and I only bring that up because that is, in the last election cycle, that was a big point. And I think if you say, how did we get to this point? Well, that's how we got here. Now, I'm not necessarily, there's a lot of sides to that. We could have a long discussion about all the factors that should be included there. But the best thing that can happen is that we sell more goods to China, and China's able to take advantage of our high-quality soy and other ag products.
How about China selling more goods to the United States?
Well, we already buy a lot of goods from China in the United States.
But low-end goods, you only want to buy jeans, socks, T-shirts, but not the more advanced stuff.
Oh, I don't know. I bet in my house I have some advanced things from China.
Good. Well, things are shifting. We all have to find and adapt. Now, another aspect of the changes is China, since for instance, the first dip in 2018, 2019, China started buying soybean from from other places, and now you got a competitor, really strong competitor. So how will American farmers, soybean farmers, what will they do to secure they got competition?
I think that is an unintended consequence of this whole thing, and you are exactly right. It's another frustration for farmers, because in the situation in 2018-19. I think that did drive China to look at how do we diversify our supplies more.
Right.
I can understand that. If I were in China, I'd do the same thing. And they've gone to Brazil. And Brazil historically had logistical problems, didn't have nearly as good a supply chain as the United States, for example.
Now they do.
Well, they have been helped because China has taken some of their technology, some of their know-how, and they've built big export elevators. They're helping them build railways. And so they're helping our competition. So how do we do that? How do U.S. farmers react? As farmers always do, they're very resilient. They use innovation, they use technology, so they have to become more efficient as they produce. And we need to continue to find other markets. So our organization, who works for the U.S. soy farmer, we're charged with going to markets all over the world. Our program this year will touch over 80 markets. Now, China's number one, so we love China. But we are also going to other markets, trying to diversify, just as we did back in 1982.
Sure. If you are going to go with one sentence to sum up the experience, the storm that we just went through, what will be that sentence to remember so that in the future we are better prepared, or the soybean farmers are better prepared if there is another episode of uncertainty? Because this is not over. We're talking about a truce.
I think we're talking about a truce.
If you're going to go away with one sentence, what would you say? Okay, now that we know this better.
Always be prepared. Always be looking for opportunities in many places. That's not one sentence. But make sure you have plenty of markets Don't get too many eggs in one basket. I think our farmers have learned that we need to have many places, many markets that we can serve. We see growth in domestic. Yes, go ahead.
Is there any power of persuasion from the farmers to the White House, for instance, that they don't pursue a very radical, trade policy?
Yes.
Because that's going to trigger very strong reactions.
I think so. I think our farmers are very clear when they continue to talk about the need for open trade, for access to markets. And I think if I hear our speakers from the new Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Brooke Rollins, she is all about trying to open new markets for U.S. agricultural goods, including soybeans. I think she's very supportive of what will happen in China, kind of the reopening of that market. So I think our soy farmers have a lot of champions in our government that want open markets, that want free trade, but we just need to make sure that we are able to work through that with the recent tariffs that were put in place. Again, back to the situation with the balance of trade. But kind of building on that, the way to fix that balance of trade situation is more U.S. ag exports to many, many countries.
Well, China will be figuring out from the Chinese perspective. Hopefully we have a stable, mutually beneficial outcome.
I think we will, Xin. I have been so pleased with the meetings we had here in China, with the way that importers want to be buying U.S. soy, even with governmental counterparts. I think there is a strong desire to maintain this relationship.
Good.
The U.S. and China have a very important relationship, an important opportunity to be a customer and a supplier in agriculture goods, and likewise on the opposite way in many other things. I think this relationship on both sides is seen to be too important to let it fail.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim Sutter, Chief Executive Officer of U.S. SEC. Thank you.
Thank you, Xin.